Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our April Thought Leader webinar. For everyone joining us live today, you may use the live chat feature below on your screen to ask questions throughout today's webinar. If you are joining us after the live session in the recorded webinar, feel free to ask questions in the comment section below and our team will respond to you directly. For those who are new to our webinar series, my name is Julianne Manning and I am the Customer Care Specialist at Stewardship. The goal of our Thought Leader webinar series is to provide nonprofits and faith-based organizations with tools and resources to help their donor communities. Our guest speaker today is Chris Villian. He is the Community Relations Consultant for Senior Star at Dublin Retirement Village. Chris brings over 8 years of experience in senior housing to his position of Community Relations and Consulting for Senior Star's Dublin campus. There, he assists prospective residents and family members in locating the information they need to make an informed decision, as well as building and nurturing relationships from a business-to-business perspective. Today, our Thought Leader webinar theme is Event Fundraising 101. Chris is going to help us outline the mechanics of planning a successful event and provide advice on what to do during and after an event to deepen relationships with supporters. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Chris Villian. Chris?
Thank you so much, Julianne, and thank you so much for having me. I wanted to first talk a little bit about myself. So I'm born and raised in Sweden, which explains the quirky accent. So if there's, thank goodness for the live chat in case you're not able to understand me. I do have an MBA focusing on international leadership and management. And just like Julianne said, I've spent past 8-9 years in senior housing, 6 of those years over at Senior Star at Dublin Retirement Village, working as their community relations consultant. That is more or less a fancy word for doing their external marketing. So event planning has been a huge part of my success over here. And it was actually through some of our Alzheimer fundraising efforts that Julianne reached out to me in the first place. So thank you again so much for the opportunity to be here. So with having a couple of years under my belt, I felt like, well, I might not have too much to say about the topic, but if I could share some of our best practices, hopefully you'll find this helpful. So what I ended up doing was that I put together kind of an event checklist of different things that we try to always stick to in order to make sure that each event is successful. We'll be talking over these different aspects, everything from why to event category, message, goal, advertisement, call to action. And last but not least, I'm going to throw in an example of one of the big fundraising events and how we try to execute it in order to make sure that it's successful each and every year. So we're going to jump in on the why. So we're going to minimize this. And just like everything we do, you know, I try to always go back to Simon Sinek's The Golden Circle with people don't get as excited with what you do and how you do it as much as why you do it. That should be the same for events as well, where, you know, that should be the epicenter in why are we doing this? Are we doing it and are they able to really get that experience that we want them to have? So with that being said, there's a lot of things that go into that, starting with the event category. In order to do some of the planning for future events, we break it down in categories to make sure that we meet our quarterly and annual goals in terms of the different types of events that we want to have. And this goes down to weekly benchmarks to make sure that these are executed properly. But we divvy them up between internal and external events. Internal, different categories such as traffic generating, looking at referral source type of events, resident events, and also prospect nurturing events. So obviously this is going to look different in different markets, but just making sure that you're involving all of the different customers that you're working with and the different relationships you have. Now, internal means that we are hosting them here on campus, whereas external meaning that we are doing it off-site. So majority of those would be either sponsorships, educational, such as music and memory, which is a signature program of ours. But we also have traffic generating off-site, which means if you have ever gotten an invitation from a financial planner to go to a fancy restaurant to listen to a spiel, well, we do those every once in a while. And one thing to take into account with those would be the return on investment, which for us, looking into if you can get one or two people to get more interested out of the 50 to 100 that you invite to these events, that can definitely be worth it. But obviously that's different for different markets. But it's good to have a structure so that you know what kind of events that you're doing, if you're going for the same all the time, and also what audience are you targeting continuously. Next, we're tackling the message. What is the message that you're trying to convey with this event? And that's going to be different for different audiences. And you gotta make sure to personalize this message for each group. So for instance, prospective residents, our message is to paint a picture of what life at our community would look like and really nurture that relationship and that hand-holding to get there. With a healthcare provider, it might be, how can I make his or her job easier, and how can we, while ensuring the patient's quality of life? With our residents, we want to make sure that they are happy at all times and continue to thrive at the community and make new memories. Sometimes, so looking here on the left, you have different audiences. Sometimes you have, it goes the other way around, that you have a message instead, and then you tailor the event thereafter. So we have different fundraising events, and then you try to involve these different audiences after that. And it tailors a little bit to the why we do what we do. But and the fundraising events that I'm gonna give example of after would be the holiday open house. But it's all about really tailoring that experiences for the audience that you have in front of you. Now, in terms of the goals, you gotta set goals, because otherwise you don't know how well you did. So we talk about things to take into account in terms of goals before and after. Like, what would you like to have accomplished with this event? So setting up a goal, like in an ideal world, what would be the perfect outcome? Under here, in order to ensure that this goal can be met, you want, think about different ways of how you can set yourself up for success. And we'll talk about that a little bit more with the call to action, but it really involves the whole team and delegate. So the whole team that you work with needs to have a clear agenda of what they're doing, and are we covering all the bases to make sure to execute this event as successfully as possible. Now, after the event, we always do a recap meeting where we talk and talk over these goals to see did we meet our goals or not? Why was it successful? Why wasn't it successful? And then always when doing that, we go away with a handful of no's. But the big thing along with that is going to be, was it successful enough for us to do this again next year? We might need to tweak it a little bit, but we always vote. Is it a yay or a nay? Are we going to do this next year? And then we pencil it in for next year if it's a success, and if not, then we mix it. So it might seem hard, but we just want to make sure that we continuously have successful events. Next up is going to be the call to action. What am I talking about? And the advertisement. You got to think about your audience. Who is it that you want to have come and experience this event? Obviously seniors being my target audience, knowing that they read the newspaper, want to make sure to have a presence there. Millennials might be more of digital platforms to utilize in different ways to get that message across. And professionals, so relational opportunities. And you got to really hone in on this, because there are so many different ways you can use your different vendors and clients that you work with in ways that are creative beyond paying for mail outs or email lists and so forth. So really be creative there and use them. Same thing with staff, friends, and family. Like as much as we might think that is a group that can't really make an impact, for a retirement community such as ours, our friend and family and resident referrals are our top traffic generator, which is huge. So want to make sure to not miss a category of people, or even if your whole utilizing your organization, and maybe a corporate office, if everyone were to like or share something on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, what kind of an explosion in terms of the message that you're trying to convey. So that's definitely something that you should take into account as well. So we've done all the advertisement, we've set the goals, we're ready to execute the event. We call this call to action. It's really, are you taking advantage of the opportunity to do PR during the event? I'm going to give you an example. So 2 days ago, I was I had a booth at a charity event for an organization that I'm part of, and the organizer, all by herself in this little nonprofit, had gathered 175 people all by herself to talk about this specific topic with its target audience. She did a fantastic job. She had a great opportunity to talk to them, and she didn't take that opportunity, and she passed the mic on to the speaker of the presentation and never circled back with them. She had a captive audience of 175 people. She could have talked about upcoming programs, the next big thing. She could have had a booth where people could sign up for things. How are you taking the opportunity that you have with this captive audience to really make the most out of it? So one of the things for us, for instance, during our events, are people able to tour the community? Well, we got to make sure that we have staff to where we're able to execute that, because ultimately that's one of the key reasons why we have events, to make sure that people get to experience the community from a traffic generating point of view. Like, are they able to sign up for things while they're on there? Well, maybe all these 175 people at this event, they had opportunity to volunteer, but no one mentioned it. So now she doesn't have the opportunity to circle back with them. She doesn't have the extra 175 people to work with, which is a missed opportunity in my book. So you got to make sure that during the event that you have and that you give people the opportunity to truly experience your services. Which leads me to our example. So one thing that we're extremely passionate about here at Senior STAR is the Alzheimer's Association. So we all together we raised, I know this put in over 700,000, but it was actually 695,000 that we got in last year, which between our 14 properties and 444 staff members is over $1,500 per person that we raised, which is huge. So one side note, a fundraising idea, our owners, Bill and Bob Thomas out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, they told us from the very get-go, write a very personalized email of why you're doing this. And then you're sending that out to your whole database. Don't discriminate. Don't think that because it is a vendor or a client of yours that they shouldn't hear it, but just send it out to everyone. And then after 2 weeks, you blast it out again. And then 2 weeks, you blast it out again. You'll be amazed how this message is coming out. And it also gives you an opportunity to clean out your database from all of the rejected emails that you get back. But there's no excuse not to share why you're doing something like this, especially from a fundraising point of view. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take the holiday open house, and then we're going to go through the event checklist and kind of talk about how we use the checklist to make it as successful as possible. So our fundraising goal for last year was $15,000. And the basic components of the holiday open house for us is the first Friday in December. It involves a free brunch, a crafts bazaar, and then a live auction of Christmas trees and wreaths that have been donated by our vendors. So let's go through some of the different steps to see how we use this list. So in terms of event category, really we're going on all cylinders here. We used our prospective residents. Obviously we want them to experience the campus during the holidays. Our referral sources, we want them to, donate and PR for the event, but we also want them to come and bid during the event. And that's another thing that we do really well. Our top vendors know about this event from when they sign the contract. Our executive director makes sure that you know that you need to have a presence during these events because we're giving you thousands of dollars worth of work. The least you can do is come and do a charitable donation at one of these events. If you don't think that that's important to you, then your business is not important to us. So utilizing your big vendors can be immensely beneficial for you. Our residents, friends, and family, obviously we want everyone to have the opportunity to invite and experience, but we also utilize our residents a lot to help with code check, to be ambassadors and help to direct traffic, and obviously also, if they're at all passionate about the Alzheimer's Association, to bid on auction items. The message for the event is to showcase our involvement with the Alzheimer's Association. Obviously, we have them on site to make sure that they can vouch for our involvement in the walk and so forth, to make sure that that message goes hand in hand. All in all, this is a really big deal for us. So we make sure that the whole campus looks like a winter wonderland, and we want the whole audience to experience this. Now, as I said, the goal for the event was to raise $15,000. We want to generate interest in the community, and we also want to nurture all of the relationships with a greater community. residents, families, prospects, and referral sources. How we advertise this was that we do countless amounts of e-blasts, I was going to say, starting already 2 months before, I think it's the first invitation. My boss mentioned that he had gotten a reply from someone from the first invitation back in October saying, isn't this a little early? And we're like, there's no such thing. Let's just do it. But you got to spread it early enough to make sure that it becomes as successful as you want it. We even send out some save the date cards. We were able to, because we communicated with media early enough, they actually came out and did a live section of showcasing some of the trees and wreaths that have been donated, because we display everything in our lobby, so people are able to really see and feel and touch everything before it goes up for bidding, so that they have a good idea what they would like to donate on. Now, this has been going on for a few years, so our donors have been started to get really competitive about outdoing one another. We have had Christmas trees with 28 wine bottles. We have had ones filled with candy. We have had ones filled with dollar bills, with lottery tickets, and they try to outstage one another, which makes for an even better event. We also made sure to use LinkedIn, and we thanked everyone that donated. And when you get over 50 donations from different businesses, it's easy to start to generate more traffic on your page as well. So I think before the event, we had over 1,000 views of the post itself without doing any kind of advertisement. We did use a Facebook ad a little bit because we found it helpful overall with our target audience to throw in a few bucks to make sure that the message is being conveyed on Facebook as well. Let's see here. So looking at our call to action for the event. So really, how are people able to experience this event? Like what are some of the things in terms of takeaways that we can use? We have printed out hundreds of event calendars for the whole upcoming year that we're giving out during the event. So it's really like a small cardstock booklet that they get with the holiday open house. On the one page, you open in the middle and you see all of the events, and on the far back of it you have the map of where everything is located and sort of the agenda of what's happening. So utilizing it both from a PR perspective but also for crucial information for the event has been really successful for us. They are able to sign up for upcoming events. And also, one way of capitalizing on the audience is to have some kind of a raffle of gift cards, which requires names and numbers. And it also gives them the opportunity to check whether or not they would like additional information about the community. And that is another way of further developing your database. Now, for this year, so normally we have the brunch, the bazaar, and the live auction. We needed to contextualize the experience to kind of showcase the fact that we had a new building and try to incorporate them a little bit more. So we brought on, in addition to this, a children's choir, a hot cocoa station, and also pictures with Santa, along with our therapy dog, Murphy, that had antlers on. So making sure to, besides splitting it up from having everything in one building, having the brunch in one building and everything else in the second one, and then coming back to the first building for our live auction was really, really successful. And one thing that we do very frequently is that we often take pictures. The reason why is because you get name, email, address. It doesn't cost much to print it out. It costs less than $1. And you can even maximize on this by putting a frame on it of some sort. And as you're shipping this out, we call this the ghost effect, meaning that even after the event is over, people have these photos in their homes and they're able to look at it and remember the experience they had. And so that in itself makes it even more special for these people. So, last year we did just over $16,150 from the event, which was a huge success. And now we have to wrap our brains on how we're gonna further develop it for this year. But that was kind of an example of how we executed a fundraising event that I hope that you feel like you can relate to or take away a few golden nuggets at least.
Perfect. Well, Chris, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for walking us through these steps of how to plan a successful event. I think, understanding these steps of why are you having this event to begin with? What is that event category? Is it going to be an event held on your campus, or is it going to be an event held in your community? What's the message that you're trying to portray through this event? What are your goals for fundraising, and how are you going to meet them? How are you advertising this event through those different channels and thinking about your audience? And then what is that call to action? How do you encourage people to continue to get more and more involved? So Chris, thank you so much for those steps today. As you can see, and thank you all for joining us today for our webinar. As I stated earlier, a copy of today's webinar will be sent to you along with April's newsletter. If you have any question for Chris or myself, our contact information is on the screen. You can also view some more fundraising tips and tricks at our blog on our website, stewardshiptechnology.com/blog. You can also go to our blog for the latest updates and information about resources, products, services, industry trends, and future webinars. As always, please share and like us on Facebook or LinkedIn. And thank you again for joining us today. I hope you all have a great day.